Good evening. It's a lovely Friday night in Cape Town this evening, and we are talking Dakar Rally 2021. Tonight we have Taye Perry, ladies first, and Baragwanath on the show. And I would like to welcome both of you. I'm not sure if Brian is with us because I believe there's some outages in Joburg. Hi, Brian. How are you?
Good yourself.
Good, man. Good. Lovely to see you again. Thank you for being on the show today also. I must apologize that Patrick was he was in the studio a few minutes ago, but I think he's also experiencing some technical issues tonight. Nevertheless, I think we can kick it off because we have a jam-packed agenda for you guys for tonight. Okay. Are you comfortable with it, Brian?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, excellent, man. So let us start and tell us, how does two motorcyclists end up in a proper Dakar rally car? How did this come about? But maybe before we get into the race of this year, give us maybe just some background in terms of where you guys started your racing career on the regional and national levels in South Africa.
From my side, I've been racing for close to 20 years now. Started with quad motocross, went to quad off-road, did Dakar twice on a quad, and now in a car. Taye?
I've probably been racing for 15 years. Also mainly off-road and regional, national level. And I did Dakar once last year, 2020. And now I'm in a car.
Okay. And how different was it this year to do Dakar in a car versus a motorbike?
It's very different. It's two different worlds completely. I mean, the physical level and the mental level is very different as well. But this year, Dakar was different as well. Not just the change from the bikes to the car. Dakar was a lot more difficult this year. But it hasn't been that much of a crazy... What do you mean, the difficulties of Dakar this year?
Yes,
the difference.
Yes, because for me being a rallyist, right, and for you coming into sitting next to another person trying to explain the road and making Brian understand where you think he must go and where Brian is actually going, how did you?
It's difficult enough trying to read it yourself.
Exactly. So how did you prep for the Dakar? You've done some regionals inside South Africa, and how did you manage to make sure that you guys click when it comes to being a team inside of the car?
Well, we got together in August of last year for our first race. Brian managed to organize it all, and that's when we first tried it out.
Okay, and Brian, how did you find it?
Yeah, it was from previous two Dakars that I did on the quad, this was a proper Dakar. It was good desert terrain. From when I've watched throughout the years and the one that we've done this year, it was a tough one for sure. Not only on the cars, not only on the drivers and the riders, physically, with it being rough terrain, serious dunes, a lot of sand. Navigation was very, very hard as well. So as you saw with even Carlos Sainz and the big guys getting lost all the time, it was a proper Dakar.
Yeah, no, for sure. I would like to welcome Patrick also to the show this evening. It's a first.
Apologies for being a bit late. Computers and myself don't get along very well. But yes, it's great to see you on the show tonight. Taye, won't you stand up, please? We just want to see you. I had to get that one in. The last time I spoke to you was on radio when you just returned from Dakar, and I still find you an incredible person doing what you did, because I cannot believe that you would ride a motorcycle which you can't even get your feet onto the ground next to it. So I still think hats off. I think that was an amazing achievement.
I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And Brian, I feel like I know you because I had the privilege to compete against some of your relatives, Peter Baragwanath and Craig Baragwanath, in rallying many, many years ago.
Okay. Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Peter, my uncle who's passed away. Yeah. Definitely one of the reasons I'm in the sport today. So, yeah, that's good to know.
Ja, de boere benodig hier 'n Nissan Sentra 4x4 and Craig was in Group N2 with us with the Toyota Corolla.
Okay. Oh, great.
So, well, it's great to see that there's a family heritage in the sport. Yeah, but you seem to enjoy both sides of the coin. You like building cars and you like competing in them.
Yeah, it comes with the territory. I mean, these days it's not easy just to factory drive. So, we sort of find ways to stay in the industry and stay in the sports and do what we love doing. So, I'm definitely not as good an engineer as I am a driver, but we masters of a lot of trades in this industry and try and make it work. Yeah.
Well, the buggies have certainly proven themselves to be formidable weapons in Dakar, especially now back in Africa. You were sort of not going, and then you ended up and being the best one of the lot.
Yeah, so throughout the year of testing, we knew we would be pretty fast. It's been very hard to prove that to everybody, but we silently knew what we were doing, and we sort of had confidence in our program, and we gave it everything we had with the budget that we had. So it was incredibly tough, but we had such a good close-knit team with guys like Julian Hardy and Mark Corbett, the owner of Century Properties, letting us go, and it was just such a good joint effort, and all the guys that were there as well. Everybody gave 100%. From every crew member, mechanics to our logistics operators, everything.
Please put it in perspective to us, because you always see guys performing in Dakar and it looks all shiny and everything's happening like it should happen. But behind the scenes, as you just said, as a privateer team, and I would consider you semi-privateer, not as a works team as such. How does that compare to the proper works teams like Toyota, for instance? You sort of had your back against the wall and you had something to prove here.
Yeah, I think, even myself and Taye included, we do a lot of things a lot of factory drivers don't even think about doing. We do our own laundry. I work on my car myself. Taye does a lot of the work herself as well. We do our own marketing. We've got a very, very small team, and we make our resources work. So it's for the last 2 years, it's been eat, sleep, Dakar. Literally, I get home from my day job at night. Once the kids are sleeping, I work on sponsorship proposals and other things, chasing sponsors and budgets. And so you just constantly, the moment you wake up, you're thinking Dakar. The moment you go to sleep, you're thinking Dakar. And it's relentless, but it's definitely worth it.
I would like to think that you've done enough this year to prove that both you and the car are capable. Has there at least been some positive response towards that?
It has. It's still tough times, with it being COVID. The world is in turmoil, so it's still incredibly tough to get sponsors. So although we have done well, we still have to work hard. So we're going to keep doing that. It is looking bright and considering how tough things are at the moment. So we just keep pushing.
I have to ask you the question: is this? Yeah, well, I can think of 1,000 reasons why you moved off the motorcycles into a car, but what's the real reason?
Well, it started out with the whole, when COVID started, everything got difficult, and my Dakar was completely off anyway. So this was a huge chance I took, and I'm really glad I took it, because this is exactly where I need to be right now.
Well, you fit all the descriptions of the perfect weight, perfect size as a navigator. You almost, I don't think the car notices you inside there, other than the fact that the driver loves hearing your voice with the right and correct instructions every time. Did you enjoy the experience as a navigator?
I did. I enjoyed it a lot. It's very different with the bikes because there's a lot more pressure. So it's incredible how drivers and navigators actually, people don't realize how tough it is on them in the car. How they don't fight, or they don't, how they can completely lose it if they really want to. And we keep it together, and it's been an incredible journey. Every day we go, and I think there's good things to come.
Well, in my own experience in a rally car, there's always the saying that what happens in the car stays in the car. I would imagine there were a few occasions that occurred on this Dakar.
For sure, I think it happens between everyone, and they have to happen. Otherwise, you don't get past them, do you?
I see Brian grinning on the other side, so that's a definite yes there.
Yeah.
Brian, from your
It's just we at least Taye, at any stage, I didn't have to leave her on the side of the road. It didn't get that bad. We worked really well together.
Like one of the guys.
It was good. We had a lot of good laughs. As much as the pressure was at the end of the stage, we just shake it off and say, "Hell, you know what? We gave it our best." We really screwed that one up. When we did. Every now and then we did make screw ups, and we at the end of the day we managed to laugh about it. So you move on and you just keep focusing on the good things. But there were some moments for sure.
From your perspective, did you go purely as a team, as driver and navigator, or did you still have a responsibility towards the other cars in the team participating in the event?
Yeah, so working at Century Racing, I've got an obligation to make sure that our company does well. So Century Racing had 5 cars there. So yeah, all the time I'm constantly worried about Mathieu Serradori and Yassir Saidan and all the other guys. They're a lot of good guys and a lot of good competitors, and we try and share as much of our intel with them, as what works and what doesn't work, and to show them, hey, well, try these settings on your shocks. It's really working for us. So and if there's different parts we can try, we share it. So it's a team effort all around. So yeah, we definitely look after our teammates.
The thing that concerned me on this event is they were doing a pretty good job of trimming them down in size. In other words, having regular incidents and accidents, and as a relatively small team, I don't imagine a big truck standing in the back of the pits with endless amounts of spares in it.
Yeah, so each team, each competitor was as far as possible trying to prepare and carry as much of their own spares as they did before the race. But yeah, there were certain things that we were breaking at this race we've never broken before, and everybody was pushing 100% all the time, especially Yassir Saidan and Mathieu. The guys are top 10 paces. So yeah, needless to say, we actually did run out of parts. There were a couple of steering rack parts where we made it home in tethers for the whole team. We literally had to polish some things up and hope that we just make it to the finish line, and we did. So
you came up with a few serious Macgyver tricks yourself to get yourself home at times. Do you want to take our listeners through that, just as for a matter of interest? How did you survive some of those incidents?
So yeah, that day, we'd been pushing and we were lying top 6, top 5 at this stage when our wish link broke on the rear suspension, and I was ready to give up. Once that happened, we'd already lost an hour. I said to Taye, what, let's call it quits. Let's just go home. I'm over this. And she was completely the opposite. She said, no, hell no.
That sounds like her.
Yeah. So yeah, on the mental side of things, I'd say Taye definitely brought us home. on the technical side, getting home we literally had to try and strap the rear wheel in a certain way that it wouldn't break the strap the whole time and come home. But we had to do a 450k stage at an average of 30 k's an hour. So you do the math.
Well, even if you look at the bike side of things, Toby Price also came up with unique ways of keeping his rear tire together. I think Ty would have appreciation, and yourself as a quad rider. Isn't that part of the Dakar? Is the innovation, the camaraderie, the way people they're completely out of their comfort zone, but they still get it home?
Yeah, it is, absolutely. I think one of the special things which I'll remember for the rest of my life on that stage was actually doing the dunes in the dark. I've always heard how bad it is to try and do the dunes in the dark, but to do it with our car in that shape and not to get stuck and come home, that was quite an experience. And also, I didn't realize the amount of competitors, also hang back that were right at the back. They're also struggling. All the truck guys struggling, and there was a couple of guys, sitting out there making bonfires in the dunes and just enjoying it. There was one particular truck, Saudi guys that we caught up to at a stage, and they left the D-Control before us. We found them later on parked, with a big bonfire having tea. We stopped and they're sort of very friendly and, hey, we want some tea, and we're like, no, we're good, thanks. We want to get to the end of the stage. Long story short, we finished the stage at about 12 midnight. And we got home and we carried on working on our car. And here another hour later, this truck comes in. After they finished their tea and their bonfire, then they carried on. So for some guys, that's the norm. They're just at the back having fun every day. So yeah, that was special to see.
What was your own expectation? What did you want to achieve on this event?
What was your own expectation? We wanted a top 5. And that's what we were heading for until we broke our wish link on the rear shock. But yeah, we wanted a top 5 and we were damn close to it.
Well, I sincerely think you don't have anything to feel bad about. You put up a sterling run in this event, both of you. And yeah, I think roll on the next Dakar. I think there's some interesting things ahead.
Thanks very much.
Clint, you think your Toyota will make
sure.
No, never. So I've been fortunate enough to follow them quite closely, and one of my questions tonight was going to be the driving at night over the dunes, but more particularly the small session that you guys had to sleep when you came in after that stage. I know there's some photos floating around where Brian was sleeping in the car on the start line the next morning, getting it ready. Just how did you get through the following day stage? Because if memory serves me correct, I think you slept like 1.5 hours, 2 hours, and still had to carry on.
I don't even think we got 1 hour of sleep in. Yeah.
But,
we snuck into, I think it was the tent with the truck guys, and we just sat down for it.
Yeah.
So funny enough, the sort of area where we were sleeping, we sort of snuck into the wrong sort of camp or room where we were supposed to sleep, and they had these triple bunk beds, and we just crashed on the floor there. I managed to get an hour of sleep in. And I woke up with this pillow hitting me from a third bunk at the top. And I look up, and the guy at the top's going, "Oh, sorry." And it was actually Ignacio Casale, who I raced against in the quads years back, and he's now racing a truck. Anyway, we good friends from the years back of having some competitive quad racing. He's won the quad category a few times, Ignacio Casale. So that was quite special. But yeah, so going into that stage, we pulled off 104th or something, and yeah, so it was pure adrenaline keeping us awake there. It was fighting through the dust all day long, and I think we still came 12th overall that day. So yeah, that's how we stayed awake, just going absolutely flat out.
It's the day.
Yeah, go Patrick.
I asked this question to other competitors in Dakar before, and I would like to have your opinion on it as well. There's especially in the dunes, there's an aspect of the dunes that I find very concerning, and I think it's more of an effect to the bikers than anything else. But on the blind side of the dune, if something happens to you on the blind side of the dune and one of those enormous trucks come barreling over there, that could be a rather nerve-wracking experience, I would imagine, because there's no ways of really warning them that well, you're stuck down there and you've got a big target on your head or your back when it comes over there. Did you ever find yourself in that type of situation on this event, or were you fortunate in the sense that you were running too far ahead in the top of the field to ever be concerned about bikes or trucks?
No, so my biggest fear was actually hitting bikers, and once or twice we came over where there'd been the most effective one is when if a biker falls, they put their helmet at the top of the dune before you go over the slip face, and that's really effective. There was one guy that did that, and if he didn't do that, I'm pretty sure we would have hit him. So yeah, the trucks, they've got slightly better visibility sitting as high as they are. But yeah, I know it is every now and then you get into these. Well, the first time we got stuck, we were stuck in amongst the trucks, and Taye can tell you herself that was pretty frightening.
And the other element of it,
luckily, our GPS system does tell us.
Yeah,
it does tell us about bikers that are downed in places, but it doesn't give us any idea exactly where they are. So we're getting beeps to tell us that there are bikers down or someone coming in the wrong direction, and we're going over a slip base. We have no idea where they are on that slip base. And sometimes we've come really close to guys who are stuck. So luck is a lot into it as well.
I still don't fancy that target on my back when you're down there somewhere.
But just stop thinking about it, Patrick.
The bottom line is once you're behind the wheel or in that cockpit, I'm sure that's forgotten. Yeah, you just concentrate on what you have to do, because if you sit and worry about it, it's never going to stop.
No, for sure.
So
yeah. We have some comments here from, and I think it's from one of your sponsors, Joshua Jobe from Comcare. They say they're very proud of your team and your positive and dynamic energy.
Absolutely. Brian, you've got a pocket dynamite next to you.
That's
in
really
that
cool.
Seat there. From what I gathered on the bike when I spoke to her on radio many moons ago, she just never stops talking. So did that at times assist you in the car? Or?
Taye is actually quite a quiet person. Getting to know, she's on a motor now, but no, she did a sterling job navigating. Where we try and keep the code language as quick and as effective as possible. Yeah. So yeah, no, it was 90% of the time it was strict business in the car, and we're really trying to focus on being competitive. You don't just come top 10 from playing, So there was a lot of pressure all along, and Taye, I think she does well under pressure. She's one of those people that does well under pressure. So that's where it came out so well. Yeah.
Both of you have the experience from bikes with reading that rolling road or rolling map, which I find incredibly challenging just to look at on TV. The navigation on this event, everybody speaks about how difficult it was this time. The waypoints you have to find, you don't physically find them, you just have to go close to them, and it triggers off a signal. But what made navigation so difficult this year that was different from before?
I actually went back and compared some of my road books from the bike last year to the road books I got in the car this year, and I even had some from the cars last year, and they weren't as thick. For example, we probably had let's call it stage 8. We had 100 waypoints last year. This year we had 200 waypoints. And it was just so much more busy. You didn't have like kilometers between nodes. They were on each other the whole time. You didn't have any like time to rest. And when there was time to rest, like a dune section or whatever you want to call it, you cannot rest in there, whether you're the navigator or the driver. It's just intense the whole time.
So would it be fair to say that you could compare this more to a proper rally stage, a special stage, rather than the adventurous endurance stages where you sort of had kilometers to think about what's coming next?
I think that depends on what speed you want to be doing and where you want to be in the field.
Well, that's the reason why I asked that question, because this year also seems to be a lot faster than the previous years. Even though they said they're making the event more compact and trying to slow it down, I got the impression that amongst the top guys, you weren't holding back. You guys were going 110% from the day one.
Yeah, so our strategy on stage 1 was maximum attack. Didn't help us, or one prologue, should I say. It didn't help us on the first stage opening. Funny enough, the first stage was incredibly bushy. We had a lot of track to open, so that wasn't the best strategy. But in the same sense, we did at least prove our pace. So, in terms of the navigation, I think what was really was there's very little to reference to as opposed to rallying. A lot of it you're in these open areas, and there's little jeep tracks in the sand. I think if you're first on the road, you can see the jeep track slightly easier. But when we come through, there's been at least 50 bikers there, and everybody's made a new track. So you're physically trying to reference to this jeep track, but there's nothing left of it. That's the one side, and then just little tracks going all over the place. And then the other side, they did a lot of oblique caps. So, for example, they give you a cap of 90, and then they tell you to take a cap of 110, or go from 90 to 110 over a kilometer. So you do a curve over a kilometer. It's a slow turn. And all that, you've got to sort of preempt and decide, are you actually doing it correctly or not? And then by the end of that instruction, there'll be, you can always pick the wrong canyon. You end up going through these canyons, and if you're 100 meters off, you go down the wrong canyon. And once you're going down the wrong canyon, it becomes worse and worse. You slowly see flip, but we're supposed to be going left here, but we're not. So I'd say that was pretty much the challenge of the Dakar is that you don't have a constant reference point. They take away visual reference points, and they restrict the GPS reference points.
Okay. And
carry on, Clint.
Yeah, and maybe just for the benefit of the audience, we spoke about the fast pace that you set on the first stage. Can you maybe just take us through the specifications of your car? I know you run a beautiful V8 in there, but then just compare it also to some of the works cars that's running four-wheel drive and some of the rules that, because there's pros and cons at the moment also that's being debated quite a lot. Maybe just give us some insight into that.
So two-wheel drive versus four-wheel drive. We're 37-inch wheels. Four-wheel drive is 31-inch wheels. So we've got an advantage on the bigger wheels. Four-wheel drive's got the advantage of four-wheel drive. And on top of that, we've got suspension travel. We currently sit at about 450 mils of suspension travel. The four-wheel drives have got 280. Call it wheel travel, not suspension travel, wheel travel. Yeah, so we've got better suspension travel, and we've got bigger tires. So that's essentially where the puncture debate came in. Exactly. We do less punctures. On top of that, we are slightly lighter. We 1,600 kilograms versus about 1,900 kilograms on the four-wheel drives. So there's certain little reference points, and the other big thing is we've got auto tire inflation, so we can inflate and deflate our tires as we drive, whereas the four-wheel drives can't. So when we get into the dunes, we go for nice soft tires. When we get into hard pack, with a flick of a button, we go to a harder tire. So That's essentially the difference between four-wheel drive and two-wheel drive. But the big thing with the four-wheel drives is, as I say, four-wheel drive. You can just accelerate so much faster. You can corner faster. They just get the power to the ground a lot better than us. Yeah.
And they get punctures easier than you.
That's a dark canyon going. You're going down now.
There's two aspects of this event that I found interesting, and yeah, from a driver's perspective, of course, if you don't get punctures, it's because he's a great driver. If you get punctures, it's because of the navigator not doing his job. But yeah, rule number one always applies in motorsport: that navigators take the blame. Taye, I'm sure you've got that one. But there's another aspect
we got quite a few pictures as well.
There's another aspect that I find interesting about this event, and Sebastian Loeb, for one, was most upset about it, and that's the speed restrictions and the way it's controlled. Did you find yourself in a situation where you potentially had a penalty as a result of it? And explain to us how that is regulated. How does a driver of his stature get nabbed on a speed restriction if it's so well controlled?
Well, I think the one where he got a speeding fine was the GPS told us it was a speed zone, but the roadbook didn't. And there's generally the debate of which one is correct. And at the time when the GPS went off, Taye said, "Hey, you always listen to the GPS. The GPS beeps, you slow down." And I think that's what most of the guys did. We slowed down when the GPS went off. And I think in that case, Loeb didn't. I think it was a 60 or 80 zone. And then on the 180 speed limit, we haven't got a proper GPS output to put into our car's software. So our car's got wheel speed sensors. So when our car's wheel speed is doing 180, the surface changes. We go from sand to hard pack, and what happens is the car surges from sand to hard pack. And that's where we essentially got some of our speeding penalties going over 180, or we got it 3 times actually. So you'd be, and most of the time you're doing on the verge of 180. So from 183, you get a speeding penalty. Most of the time we're doing 180 on the limit because we're trying to overtake in the dust. So overtaking the dust is incredibly hairy, and doing it at 180 as well. You dodge camel grass, and you're in between trees, and you're down these little beds, and then on top of that, you're trying to keep your speed on exactly 180, and then you get these surges between sand and hard pack, and yeah. So speeding penalties that we got is definitely just from pushing hard, trying to overtake.
Do you feel it's a good aspect of the modern Dakar is to restrict the top speed of the cars?
It's essentially coming from the production cars looking like production cars and not being aerodynamic. I think that's where it's coming from. So, the Toyota Hilux, for example, is a lot more unaerodynamic than our CR6. So, from 180 up, we tend to go faster simply because we have better aerodynamics. So, the fact that they're capping that is definitely in favor of the production cars, which I understand. They want the production cars to feature.
So you wouldn't relate that to a safety cap as such, just to keep things under better control? Because no racing driver, I cannot imagine any racing driver accepting a speed restriction.
I think you're safer at full throttle whether it's on a bike or a car.
That's it. You just want to hang it and go for it.
But yeah, it is frustrating for a guy like Loeb as well. And I understand it from myself. You just want to go. You don't have to be worrying about trying to balance your car at 180 all day long. No, for sure, it does take an essence of racing out of it. But it's the same for everybody. So we've just got to accept the challenge and rise to it for sure.
From what you just said, though, you had an argument to say that he didn't really transgress. if there's a split between the GPS and the Roadbook, well, surely at this level of competition, it shouldn't be.
Yeah, so it all depends how you handle it at the end of the day. I mean, we had some hard decisions thrown to us every now and then as well, and I'm just glad that they're clamping down on the priority drivers as much as they are on everybody else. So it's a good fair race for everybody. If you impose on a penalty, it gets stuck by it. It's not completely unregulated that there's priority to the main drivers in.
You've literally got people from all over the world coming onto this event. And it's something that I also find sort of puzzling as an outsider. Do you ever run into some kind of a language barrier somewhere? It's a French event. Most of the instructions, I would presume, is in French. You're in a Arabic country. Nobody can really talk to you. Or is English still the language to go to?
Yeah, it's a constant battle at Dakar. It's definitely there's language barriers wherever you go, and especially when you break down, you're asking for assistance.
I can imagine.
Our team manager Julian Hardy is
on a different level.
Yeah. So Julian's speaking French, and then our teammates that were with us, Kevin, the manager for the Brazilian car, was also French. And whenever there was an issue, we just like, Julian, Kevin, please help. So being French is definitely an advantage here, and having someone French in the team is definitely an advantage.
Well, I can imagine you're breaking down in the desert, and the only assistance you're really going to get is going to offer you a camel.
Yeah. The local Saudis, English was also pretty bad. Some could speak pretty good English, but yeah.
And the race is well accepted by the local community. They enjoy it. It's still got that atmosphere.
Not as good as South America.
It's definitely getting a bit more known.
What's that, Taye?
Sorry, Taye, go ahead.
I say it's definitely getting a bit more known. I think the whole COVID thing this year also made it a bit more quiet than it would have been. Because even last year, as the Dakar stages went on, more and more people came out. So I think this year would have been huge if it wasn't for the COVID restrictions on people coming to spectate.
And so last week we interviewed also a gentleman, a very well-known gentleman that I know you bumped into on the Dakar. Patrick, help me. And there was a topic of discussion, and it always comes up. What is the budget like to run a car on the Dakar? Because last week we had a discussion to run a motorbike, and it was about 2 million rand, or in excess of 2 million rand. Can you possibly give us some insight in terms of what it all takes to get to the Dakar at this stage for a team that runs a car?
I'd say anything depending on your level of your car and your team and your backup, your assistance, your spares. Anything from 3 to 10 million, depending on your sponsors as well. So yeah, if you want to be really competitive and you've got a 10 million budget, you can have a really nice program. But yeah, anything in that range, it all depends on what you're going for.
Well, I presume that's why you've got a sponsor like Comcare to take care of a heart attack when you come back and you see the tire bill.
Yeah. So something I never knew about the Dakar, that there's actually guys that comes onto the Dakar that actually they drive just as support, and they actually charge a fee to carry some spare parts. How does that work?
So they call it a T4 assistance race truck. So they essentially trucks that are racing on the route. and they then carry specified parts for you. But for example, for us to rent a T4 or rent space on a T4 truck is about 25,000 euro, which is about R500,000. So we didn't have the budget for that. We literally just scraped over the start line. So one of the things we had to bargain for on the marathon stage was getting parts from a T4 truck, which we hadn't paid for.
So in your case then, how did you support yourself? In other words, what type of physical support did you have in each stage, knowing that things could go wrong?
A lot of hope and faith, pretty much. Not much physical.
And between you as a team, between the cars itself, did you share spares as such, or was it a case of only if I wreck the car can you get something from me type of thing?
Yeah. So we did try and help each other out, but there were no strict team orders to help each other. We've all got our own private race going on, as even though we are the same cars, we're all from different teams and that sort of thing. So at a stage, we did give parts to the Brazilians. We gave them a spare wheel, and when we broke down, Yassir stopped for us and Mature stopped for us. So we did try and help each other as far as we could, and then also when we got the spare wish link, we got it from Mature's T4 truck, so Mature helped us out big time there to finish the race.
Yeah. So on the point of the wish link, it carries a story also. So what is it that you do differently next year versus this year? Is there a list of lessons learned? Is there a few things that you change?
Yeah, look, a car's got to have a fuse somewhere. Something's got to break when you hit something big. And what we hit was a camel grass. So we hit from one camel grass to the next one. Actually, not far from where Ross Branch had his crash as well. So it was a bad day for both of them. But so you need to have a physical fuse point somewhere on the car. And the wish link is pretty much our fuse point at this stage. And all we had to do was carry one in the car, which we were supposed to have. It's not a heavy part to carry. So in future, we have beefed it up a bit, but we do still need to have it as a fuse. And we will have more spares in the cars in the future as well.
Okay. And another aspect I would like to cover with you is I've had the privilege to do a bit of aerobatics in aeroplanes, but I've never heard of anybody barrel rolling one of your cars. Yet I believe you've got that achievement and you got the wings on your jacket for next year.
Yeah, we skated through with that one. It's, the moment I remember most clearly about that is the moment we landed on our wheels. Taye said to me, "I knew this was going to happen."
I told you so.
Well, now you're going to have to explain, Taye. Is that because of the driver being a hooligan, or just an inevitable set of circumstances?
It's a combination of a whole bunch of things.
Well, it sounds like you managed it without any damage, other than possibly his ears ringing from your comment.
Yeah, so
and a wheel
that day
coming off.
yeah. So the wheel just popped off. We had to change the wheel, but at the time we were sort of we'd said to ourselves we need to calm down and just manage our top 5. That's what we're aiming for, and we started getting roped into a battle between Carlos Sainz, Stefan Peransel, Nasser. We're all in the mix of things through the dunes there, and I was just getting too excited and pushing harder than what I could handle. Put it that way. So I was over pushing, and when I made the mistake, obviously that's where Taye's comment came from, because she's been trying to calm me down. Focus on the game plan. Calm down, and then when I did that, it was a good little slap on the wrist.
Retracting the horns a little bit. But Brian, you arrived there from a driver's perspective in the cars as a relative unknown. They didn't know what to expect from you when you came there this year. Did you find a bit of a different sort of feeling amongst the drivers afterwards, since you sort of proven yourself now? Or were they happy to see a newcomer performing the way you did? What was the reception like amongst the top guys there?
Must I get this one? Say?
yeah. As far as the drivers are concerned, you were a relative.
Yeah.
But you're not in the status of a low, but now now they can consider you as a serious threat to low, and that must be a nice feeling after an event like this.
Yeah, it's obviously these guys have been doing it for years, and it's an incredible high status to be a professional driver. You know, they get paid really well, and they're in a very fortunate position to be in where they're in. So, needless to say, they weren't very friendly, but they were all cool guys. You know, so it was really, so a lot of the guys, you know, Tier, Cyril Dupre, some of the guys really stood out as friendly guys, but obviously they're there. They've got a massive job to do as well. They've got big salaries. They're being paid big salaries, so they've got big responsibilities to perform for their sponsors. So yeah, everybody's under a lot of pressure. So you can't expect everybody to get there and be welcoming to a new threat. You know. So, but that being said, everybody was incredible sportsmen, and it was a fantastic opportunity. We grew up looking at these guys as heroes. You know, so it's incredibly humbling to be there and competing against them.
It's also amazing, actually, to see how well South Africa, not only from a driver's perspective or a navigator's perspective, it's great to see how many South African-based teams have now become almost the hub of the Dakar event. I would love to, well, I'd like to think that Nissan and Ford will be represented again next year from a Woolrich or a Terence Marsh element. Toyota's already there. You guys have suddenly put yourself on the map. I'm hoping that there's another 20 cars being ordered from you at this stage. And it's awesome to see that. Really, it's great to see South Africa right at the front of this. This is the, you can't get better than Dakar, and South Africa is right at the front of it, and it's a fantastic thing to see.
Yeah, I think as South Africans, you know, we're very fortunate growing up with motorsport background that a lot of us have access to. You know, in a lot of countries, it's not as easy to get access to racing as we do. We've got the space, we've got, I wouldn't say the currency, but we've definitely got the space and the freedom to. So, you know, even myself growing up, I come from a small town, but there was nothing else to do in those days but ride bikes. So that's essentially where I built my speed from. And I know there's lots of South Africans out there that have got the same. And the same comes from an engineering point of view, building cars. South Africans have just got that tenacity to make a plan. You know, we build cars at half the people of the world. So from Nissan to Ford to Toyota, to us, to all the guys, we all make a plan. We all work together. We all share our sort of intel to an extent, and that's why we're at the forefront of the world, is because I think we're a lot more susceptible to working together and being good sportsmen.
Another thing that's been of a concern over many years now, I've spoken to Janelle about it on a regular basis. The only hiccup I see from a South African perspective is not seeing you guys get enough racing exposure before going to Dakar. I suppose that's got something to do with the economy, as well as other restrictions, visiting other countries. But would it not be great to see you guys compete in the entire World Championship leading up to the Dakar event?
Yeah, it would. The FIA World Championship, I think, is not well marketed at this stage. You know, the whole world isn't following it as it is a World Championship. You know, if you take Formula One, for example, that's a proper World Championship. But in terms of off-road, it would be nice to have our FIA World Cup cross-country rally raid properly marketed and followed. It's only those die-hard rally raid fans that follow the FIA World Cup. So I think that's what we're missing in terms of a World Cup is a big following.
Having said that, I would also like to think that, as you've said now, South Africa is the perfect breeding ground, perfect place to practice and grow in the sport, because our off-road events are good. They are very, very good, and testing events. So your preparation, would that be restricted to doing some of the rounds of the South African Championship? Would you be doing the entire championship? How do you guys go about preparing for next year's Dakar? Not just chasing sponsors. Obviously, you need some seat time as well to prepare for it.
Yeah, the perfect exposure is to do races like Silkway Rally and do more FIA World Cup races. But SACCS races in South Africa are still, the terrain is brilliant. I just hope that we can get more challenging navigation in South Africa. We still run on GPS tracks and we have stickers. So all they need to do is remove that, and we've got a lot more challenging navigation. So if the organisers would look at that, that would be pretty cool. But bar that, it's still perfect setup for the cars. It's very competitive. We're able to push hard through some very tough and rocky terrain, but they also don't want to make the navigation too hard because it becomes dangerous. The guys go backwards on the track and you end up having head-ons and that sort of thing. So you've got to find a balance, and I think that's what the guys are always trying to do. So yeah, doing the SACCS Championship in South Africa, that's our best, most affordable training solution throughout the year. And to develop the cars, we get to race against the Toyotas and the Nissans and the Fords, and we all get a clear comparison on the terrain there to see how well we're doing. So yeah, our training ground in South Africa, I think, is probably one of the best in the world.
Taye, if you had a choice, would you be going back on a bike or would you stick to the cars now?
Let's go win in the car.
But you enjoyed your time on the bike, and I would imagine that not just the thrill of finishing.
Of course.
I think
and I always tell people, I'll never compare to.
Sorry, I missed you there.
Yeah, making it.
I say I won't compare the two. I love them both equally for different reasons.
But and if you got the opportunity, would you go back on a bike?
Who knows when? But right now, this is where I am and where I need to be, where I want to be.
That we want to be.
There's a very professional answer for you now.
So Brian, talking about developing
political, but I mean, Taye's just being political, but she's definitely very hard. So I guess to go on a bike, she'll do it again, and I wouldn't hold it back either.
I'm a biker.
So.
I have to ask this question. When it came to punctures, did you have to get out and change the wheel, Taye, or was he a gentleman and did he do it himself?
It was teamwork. We definitely got a lot better throughout the Dakar. We're now tire changing pros. he still does all the heavy work though, but the nut run is mine.
Well, I can't imagine you being much taller than the tire, so that must be quite a weight for you to move around.
So put it
it's
this way:
quite a big tire.
the moment we stop the car to change a tire, I push the button and Taye has to get out the car. So I start, with the hard work of pushing
checking it out.
We're making a joke of it now, but it's really an aspect that I will always admire about Taye, and that's the fact that I still can't handle the fact that you could ride a motorbike in those conditions without having being able to put a feet down on the ground. So yeah, that's an image that'll stay with me for life.
Yeah. So Brian, talking about developing cars in South Africa, right? In terms of next steps and what the future holds for Dakar, What's your thoughts, especially coming from a mechanical background, in terms of hydrogen and electric cars? Is that the next step for Century Racing?
I think we'll be forced to look into it in the future for sure. Dakar is pushing hard to go green. I think they may be overdoing it a little bit to an extent, but in the same sense, they are just trying to encourage more teams to do hybrids. So they'll definitely give the hybrid cars an advantage going forward. It looks like Audi next year, from what we hear, are going to have an advantage. So coming in with their electric four-wheel drive, so yeah, it's definitely a way we're all going to have to change in the future, and it's I wouldn't say it's a bad thing. I think it's a challenge, but it's not something we're doing straight away, and it's also an incredibly expensive thing to do. Lithium batteries and technology in that in the cars is still quite underdeveloped. So, this will encourage all these aspects, all the hybrid technology to become a lot cheaper in the future as well. So, us being a small team, we can't afford to put millions and millions into the research and development of it. So we won't be on the forefront of it, I don't think. We will, as far as we can, have some great ideas. Century Racing always thinks out the box, and we've always got contacts. So can assure you we won't be lying down about it. We'll definitely be planning ahead in the future to doing something great.
I sincerely hope that includes some kind of a sound effect to retain the sound of a V8. I cannot imagine motorsport without a roaring V8 sound behind it.
It comes with a speaker.
Crazy.
Yeah. So they tested some.
At this stage, I'm not sure about the hydrogen. I'm not sure about the hydrogen, but I know on the electric cars, it looks like they're going to have 2-liter turbo DTM engines as generators. So there'll still be quite a substantial engine in that electric car generating power. So it shouldn't be too boring.
Yeah, somehow I don't think it's quite going to live up to expectations as far as sound's concerned.
Yeah. But there's been some testing done on cars that was on the Dakar this year. Do you have any insight into how competitive they've been versus the regular cars?
No, me personally, I don't know the exact performance figures, but I do know that the organizers will give the hybrid cars favor in terms of the rules. So don't expect the hybrid cars to be slow when they come out.
Okay.
Just want to read some of these comments again,
yes.
Clint.
Yes, I saw you were busy.
Really nice chat or Dakar perspective. Thank you and well done, both of you. That's from Bonneville Brew, and then Mike Nathan here. How intense was the Dakar COVID bubble and regulations and restrictions? In other words, did you feel that in your team? Did it affect you somehow? Or was it just a case of everybody just buttoned down and did what was required?
Yeah, we had to quarantine for 48 hours when we got to Dakar, and then we had this incredible cloud of doubt hanging over us. What if one of us tests positive? So from the moment you leave to the moment you get there, you've invested millions into your race, and if someone tests positive, that's it. You're not going to get to race. So from your first test when we leave and you test positive, that's one of the first mini victories, and then once you test positive at the race as well, it's a great victory. After that, you're sort of in the bubble and you don't have to stress about it anymore. But it was incredibly stressful. There was 1 or 2 competitors and team bosses and things that did test positive and had to quarantine for 2 weeks in their hotel. They didn't get to see the race. So, yeah, it was stressful.
The traveling restrictions, this is a bit the wrong way around now, but there was a bit of a panic getting to the event itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, Saudi pretty much went into like a stage 5 lockdown, if you consider it to South Africa. So a week before the race, they went to stage 5 lockdown. We got these emails saying all borders closed, all flights cancelled. And then we scrambled to get a flight. Fortunately, Toyota actually chartered an entire airplane, sorry. We managed to jump on board with them. So big thanks to Glenn Hall for organizing that with Ethiopian Airlines. But it was just getting to the race was incredibly tough logistically, and even for ourselves, just as passengers getting there. But getting our cars there, getting our spares there was very expensive and very stressful.
And finishing up on the event, did you at least have time to sort of chill out and enjoy it, or was it a case of you're done, get home as quickly as possible? How did the COVID element affect that aspect of the race? Nobody hears about what happens afterwards. It's a great race. It's done. What then? How did you return? Did you have any problems returning from there?
We had a bit of a painful COVID test. Literally, the day we came home, there was only one guy testing all the Dakar competitors, and he was quite brutal as well. I think he was enjoying hurting all the competitors. So we wasted where we should have been loading our cars. We wasted a whole day waiting for this one dude to test, like 3,000 people. Sure. Which was quite painful and quite irritating. But once that was done, then we had to rush, pack the containers, get the cars onto some vehicles went onto the Dakar ship. Some stuff we had to get to the container and pack. So there was absolutely no rest from when we finished. It was stress all the way until we got into the airplane and came home. And then obviously coming home, you hope to have a positive test as well. Otherwise, you get held there again.
Negative.
So
negative test.
Yeah. Negative.
It depends on what your perspective is on positive and negative in this case.
Positively negative.
So it was not easy going to Dakar in COVID times, but at least there was a Dakar, so we can't complain.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing. The preparation that goes into it, the money gets spent, and then to have it cancelled like they did previously, that's not just disappointing, but it's also a costly delay. That.
Yeah, for sure. And as hard as it is to find sponsors now in these tough times, we really take favor to the guys that see the value in attacking while nobody else is. So yeah, thanks to our sponsors who have stuck through us in this whole journey and have seen the opportunity in racing while taking risks when nobody else is. Yeah.
Well, I think I'd like to give you that opportunity to give them all a mention. So there, mention all those people that assisted you on this event.
Yeah, so to Century Racing, first of all, and CompCare Medical, Caltex heavily in South Africa, Century Properties, House Developments, BF Goodrich Tires, Dozer, Earth Moving, and Trollop Mining. All those guys who stood behind us when nobody else would believe that this was possible. Thank you.
Well, and we are really proud of what you achieved as well as supporters here in South Africa, and we really hope that aim for the top 5. Maybe it could be even better next year.
Absolutely.
Clint, I see that the hour's up again.
Yes, it actually went very, very fast tonight. It was a great discussion. Thank you to Taye and to Brian. It's always good chatting to you. And I'm definitely popping in at the workshop next time, Brian, to come and see what you're scratching on. So thank you for making the time. I know you guys got quite a busy schedule also. And I won't phone Taye again while she's out riding a bike in the week.
I've got to throw something in here before we finish up, and that is, you come from a rallying family. Ever had the desire to go rallying?
Yeah, it has actually been there. I just I would say I wouldn't say I haven't had the opportunity. I have never had it on my radar because I've always had other things on my radar. But I would thoroughly enjoy doing a bit of rallying one day too. I don't think I would ignore it. I think it's definitely on my bucket list.
Well, that's good to hear that heritage is still present. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Peter Baragwanath won the junior championship or the junior South African championship twice, and that was no mean feat in those days. Sadly, rallying is not what it used to be at this stage, but yeah, hopefully you'll stay in Dakar for long enough for rallying to recover, and maybe one day we'll see you back in a rally car again.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. From what I hear back in the day, the way they used to race stages through the night, it sounded like something really tough. So yeah, let's see what happens in the future.
Taye, thank you for your time as well, and please speak to this man.
Thanks,
No more
Patrick.
barrel rolls. They don't work out too well in any type of car. That's for aerobatics and aeroplanes. It's not meant to be happening in
Wheel,
cars. Thanks, Clint.
Thank
it
you.
was most enjoyable as usual. And
thank
behind
you.
the scenes,
Thanks, guys.
Kyle, thank you for your assistance in the background there, Kyle.
Thanks.
Thanks, Carl.
Okay. See you guys.